Well, you join me today here in central London on the site of the Tyburn Gallows. For hundreds of years in Britain's rocky religious history, this was the spot where many British Catholics were martyred for refusing to submit to the authority of the Church of England. Well, today in 2025, things are certainly very different, as this country is going through a Catholic revival, where young people seeking ritual and tradition are turning not to the Church of England, but instead to Catholicism. Well, today we're going to go and explore some of England's largest Catholic churches to see what this revival is actually like. Join me. Right, so we're just going to get on this path over here, really giving you guys a full experience, you know, nice traditional red London bus, and we're going to go on for a few stops and head off to the Bronx Oratory, possibly the most beautiful Catholic church in the country. So as I hinted to earlier, one thing that's quite interesting about this Catholic revival that we're seeing at the moment is that it's mainly from young people. You know, people in my kind of age bracket who are converting to Catholicism. You know, there seems to be a kind of religious awakening of sorts in the UK, and this Catholic revival is kind of the latest rendition of it. Right, let's get off here at Bronx Square, and we're going to walk over. Sorry, man. We're just going to walk over to the Bronx Oratory. Let's go. So I think a lot of people have some kind of an idea in their heads about the sort of difference between Catholicism and Protestantism. You know, when they think of those two things, they probably think of they have a slightly different image in their head. But what actually is the difference between Catholics and Protestants? Well, I guess the ultimate thing is who is the authority in religious matters. For the Catholics, the Roman Catholics, they see the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, as being the head of the church, and basically what the established church says is kind of the truth. Meanwhile, in the Protestant tradition, they put a lot less emphasis on the church tradition itself as being kind of the guiding light, but rather the Bible, the scriptures, religious scriptures. These are held in Protestantism as being a lot more authoritative than the church tradition. And that's why when we talk about Protestantism, it's not a monolith. Protestantism isn't one thing. There are lots of different Protestant churches. That's the oratory in the background, by the way. Yeah, there are lots of different Protestant churches that all kind of reinterpret the Bible in lots of different ways. You know, you've got the Methodists, you've got the Church of England, you've got the Presbyterians, and they're all slightly different denominations. But the Catholic Church is just one denomination, and it's the largest denomination in Christianity by a considerable margin. It's kind of the main character of Christianity. So here we've got something quite interesting. You can see there's a list. It's a Sunday today, and there's a list of all the masses, all the services that are going on. And you can see they've got them in different languages. You know, you've got 8 AM, there's the Mass in English. Then at 9 o'clock there's in Latin, and again in English, and again in Latin at 11 o'clock. And you see there are two different types of Latin, and these are, never heard of this before, but there's Tridentine Latin, and then there's Solemn Latin. So I'm not sure if that's a different pronunciation or of Latin or whatever, but I'd be really interested to know. But yeah, so this is the Bronx Oratory over here. As you can see, absolutely enormous, you know. I mean, it really is quite an incredible building. But yeah, we're just going to go inside and check it out. Okay, well, we've just entered inside the Bronx Oratory, and this is rather sweet over there. It looks like there's a baptism going on. Just a small family over there in one of the little bits. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, just look at the scale of this church. It's just absolutely enormous. It's almost like a kind of museum. You see these enormous statues up here. And yeah, I mean, the scale of it is really quite something. Look, I mean, just look at it. If you've ever been to on holiday in like a Catholic country like Italy or Spain or something like that, I think being somewhere like here really gives you that same kind of atmosphere of just a really spacious, old building, kind of steeped in history. You know, all the Latin countries are just filled with beautiful churches like here, and so stepping into this building, it really feels like we're in a different world. This doesn't feel like Britain at all. Alright, so that was the Brompton Oratory. Yeah, I mean, it really is quite incredible. Like I say, I've already got a video of me going around the Brompton Oratory, but I just thought I couldn't do a video about Catholicism in the UK without visiting this building. So yeah, as you can see, obviously there wasn't a service going on when we went in, but you just get a sense of kind of the scale of this incredible building, and yeah, really exciting. So now we're going to head to what is now the largest cathedral in London, and I think in the UK. So this used to be the biggest one, but then the Westminster Cathedral was built, and that is slightly bigger, so we're going to check that one out as well. Let's go. So it's quite interesting because obviously Britain is historically a Christian country, but it seems like these days a lot of the Christianity that is practiced tends to be coming from different immigrant cultures. You know, in the case of the Eastern Orthodox, you know, Russian, Ukrainian, Moldovan immigrants. In the case of Catholicism, you know, a lot of the Catholics, you know, maybe they'll be from a Catholic family, but more likely is they're from Italy or Spain or something like that. So it's really interesting that, you know, immigration has brought a lot of different religions to London, like Sikhism, Hinduism, Islam, but it's also brought back a lot of Christian traditions to Britain. Oh, some people clearly getting very cross on the streets of London this evening. Don't know what's going on there. Okay, well, as you can see, we've made it to this incredible building here in Victoria. This is the Westminster Cathedral, and it's really quite spectacular. To be honest, I didn't think this was a Catholic church to begin with. You know, as you can see, it looks kind of quite ornate, quite Eastern Orthodox. You know, I didn't look this up, but maybe it used to be an Eastern Orthodox church. But you know, if I just take you up here, you see this sort of mosaic of Jesus. It looks quite kind of Eastern Orthodox, and then you just got some Latin writing up there. Just says Lord Jesus, Redeemer, King and Redeemer, through your bloods save us. I'm not sure where that's from. I think maybe some passage in the Bible perhaps. Anyway, let's see if we can have a look inside. So yeah, this is the Westminster Cathedral, and as you can see, it's absolutely incredible. I almost think I prefer this to the Brompton Oratory, just because it's got a bit of magic to it. It's really it's a really nice kind of blend of, obviously it's a Catholic church, but it does have a kind of Eastern Orthodox feel to it, which I just really like. You know, these little mosaics over here, and this kind of big dome structure you just see throughout it. It's very Byzantine. Yeah. Over here we've got a confessionary. Obviously one thing that's very special about the Catholic Church is there's a big emphasis on confessing your sins to a priest, which we don't have in the Protestant tradition. And yeah, that's where you go to sort of, the priest will sort of sit in here, and you go in there and sort of confess your sins. So here is something quite interesting as well that you won't get so much in the Protestant tradition or at all, is you have pictures of various saints and religious figures. This is, I'm not sure who this is, Beata Joanna, Saint Joanna, I guess, I'm not sure, but it says intercede pro nobis, which means intercede for us. And what that means is people will come here and light a candle over here and pray not specifically to God, but to the saints, basically. So what you're doing is you're kind of praying for the saints to pray for you in heaven. And maybe my Catholic theology is a bit rusty. I'm sure there's a little bit more of a precise way of putting it, but that is the gist. And that's something that's not really done in the Protestant tradition, where there's a much larger emphasis on just praying only to God. Skip out the middleman. So there we go, that was the, not the Bronx Oratory, the Westminster Cathedral. And yeah, I've got to say, what an incredible building. I mean, just so beautiful. Yeah, it really is worth coming to see this. It's interesting, like I say, I was chatting to one of the women who works at this church, and she said that, yeah, the guy who built this wanted to build it in the Byzantine style. You know, he didn't really like the Gothic style, and you know, that a lot of churches in this country are built in. So he decided to give it this kind of ancient Greek look. As you can see, it has that slightly Eastern Orthodox quality to it, which I really love. It's like a kind of mix between Eastern Orthodox and Catholic. You know, what a combo. So another thing that's quite interesting about going around this church was that there was a subtle but noticeable presence of young people there. You know, normally when you think of, you know, churchgoers, you tend to think of the older generation. But yeah, there were a few young people, and it's difficult to tell whether they're just long-standing Catholics or whether they're more recent people who are, you know, starting to get interested in Christianity more broadly, who are just checking it out on a Sunday. You know, I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting, that there was that little subtle presence of kind of a slightly younger demographic, which might be a sign of how society in Britain is changing and how the young people are becoming more religious. So yeah, difficult to know for sure, but just interesting to notice. Right, so just before we head off to our next church, I think let's have a little comfort break, you know, and just go inside this little Greg's, get something to eat. If you're not from the UK, this is a hotspot of kind of British cuisine. Let's see if we get something. Hello mate, how are you? You alright? Okay, so we just made it here to this Greg's. You know, if you're not from the UK, this is like a bit of a staple place to go for British cuisine. And yeah, I've just got a little Greg's sausage roll here. It's the kind of thing to get. So yeah, let's tuck in. So there we go, that was the Greg's here in Victoria. And it's quite funny because you know, obviously this is a really nice area of London. Lots of very beautiful buildings, and obviously a very nice church over there. But one thing that's quite sad is that there is quite a lot of homelessness here as well. Like, there are lots of, yeah, just homeless people who are just sort of being forced to sleep on the streets and stuff like that. And you know, they didn't really want to be filmed or anything, which of course I completely respect. But you have a lot of them kind of sleeping outside restaurants and, you know, fast food places like Greg's, presumably because they're trying to rely on those services to support them. One guy came into the Greg's where I was while I was eating in there, and literally unplugged his phone from a charging port. So you can see how it's really quite a difficult situation. Okay, so we're just here outside Victoria Station now, and in a minute we're just going to get on another bus and head over to another Catholic church called Spanish Place. And this is another one that I've never heard of before, but yeah, I've seen some photos and it looks really nice. So yeah, let's see if it trumps Westminster Cathedral. I doubt it will. Right, so I've made it just here off of London's famous Oxford Streets over here, and the Spanish Place. I like your suit, mate, very nice. The Spanish Place is just up here, so let's go check it out. That guy wasn't really responding to my compliment. I've just come here to St. James's Roman Catholic Church in Spanish Place. Do you want to check it out? Here it is. Let's have a look inside. Now this looks really cool. You can see this is very different from the ones we've seen so far. This is quite a Gothic building, you know. If it wasn't for this sign, one would think this is a, you know, a Protestant church maybe. Anyway, let's have a look, see if we're allowed to film. Okay, so they're currently just administering the sacraments in the church. There's an afternoon mass going on, and obviously, you know, it is a full religious ritual. I don't want to go sticking the camera in people's faces, so we're going to come back to this one after the mass is over in 10-15 minutes. But while we do, I just saw another church around here that we can go check out, which is a Methodist church. So this is part of the Protestant tradition. Methodism is a branch of Protestantism, which is obviously very different from the Church of England, but it still theologically is from the same sort of heritage as the Church of England. So we're gonna go check that out. It looks pretty cool. Again, you can see it's a beautiful area. I think we're in Bayswater now. Yeah, a lot of churches in Bayswater. It's difficult to know whether this is because of you know, the reason why these areas are so nice, because there's lots of religiosity that, you know, makes people very nice and productive. You know, it's difficult to say. But it is an interesting coincidence that many of these affluent areas have quite a large Christian, presumably, population. Let's have a look. Hindle Street Methodist Church. Let's check it out. By the sounds of it, they have a service going on as well, but let's see what's possible. Oh mate, do you know how you get into the church?
It's closed.
It's closed? Oh, shame. Thanks, mate.
It was supposed to be an evening service.
Oh, really?
But they haven't got lots of staff to run it, so they're doing it on Zoom instead.
So it's open in the evening?
Open Sunday once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah, Sunday evening.
Okay.
It's got 11 o'clock every Sunday.
Mm.
Every 2 weeks they got a 9:30.
Okay, okay, interesting. So, unfortunately, that church is shut at the moment. Sounds like someone is practicing the organ, but closed for the public. Obviously, it would have been interesting to show you guys inside to kind of compare a Protestant church to a Catholic church. But one thing that I think is definitely very clear is that the Protestant churches that are the traditional churches of this country are not doing well. They're not doing well. You can see obviously there's a big craze for Catholicism. Lots of young people in the Catholic churches, but in the traditional Protestant churches, there's not the same movement. Very few young people are going to Protestant churches. So yeah, they're not doing as well. There are slightly less services on in Protestant churches. Okay, so it looks like the church has just finished. Looks like there are people walking out from the service now. So we're going to go back in and have a little look around and see what this church is actually like. Let's go. Well, unfortunately, there was a bit of a service going on in that church. So there was various restrictions about what I could film. I did have a little wander around. They were just finishing up the service, and I don't have any videos to prove it, but it was quite interesting to see. It was pretty full church. Like, there were a lot of people there, very multi-generational, people of a lot of ages, and families. Yeah, the Catholic Church is about as alive as it's ever been in the UK. It's really interesting. Okay, so I'm just walking down Oxford Street now, here in central London. Obviously you can see this is one place where London is just absolutely beautiful. Lots of nice little niche coffee shops, and it's all very clean, all very sleek and modern. And it's interesting just reflecting on the day, because obviously, personally, I think it's good to see one of the great religious traditions like Christianity to be going strong here in the UK. But there is also I do feel some kind of sadness as well that it's a slightly different religious tradition to the native, if you like, Protestant tradition that this country was built on for the past several hundred years, since more or less since the formal establishment of the Church of England. And yeah, it's still great to see there's all these Catholic churches are being filled to the brim or whatever, but there is some sadness that yeah, it's not the story right across the board. And if you go to an Anglican church, you go to a Methodist church, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but the likelihood is that a lot of these churches are still very empty, and unfortunately there are a lot of them that are still closing down and being renovated into other things. Okay, well, we've made it back here to Marble Arch, and yeah, that rounds up this video here in London. Hope you found it interesting. Hopefully you've got a new insight into the Catholic Church, the Catholic revival that we're going through. And yeah, certainly been very interesting. So yeah, thanks for watching as always, and yeah, see you in the next one.